All right, welcome to the Aging in Place Forums, the August edition of our Aging in Place Forums. Boy, I think I should even know what this one's called, you know? Is it up there? Oh, thank goodness. Changes to your home and resources to help. And we have a wonderful panelist today that we'll introduce. I'm Jeff Kellbach. I'm an aging specialist with Johnson County Social Services and a staff liaison to the Johnson County Livable Community Initiative. Livable Community Initiative, I know most of you have heard this before. There's even some of you who are or have been board members on the Livable Community Policy Board, so I'll keep it really brief. The whole idea of Johnson County Livable Community is just to improve the community of Johnson County, and we certainly focus on older adults and what we can do. I think this series has been very well received. I know this is going to be, and Scott and everybody up here has put a lot of work into this presentation today. There's some great information out in front of you as well, so I know this will be another wonderful forum in our series. I wanted to thank Housing Action Team. Tracy Achenbach's the chair of that, for putting this together. Housing Action Team consisted of a lot of wonderful individuals representing many organizations in the community. The Greater Iowa City Area Home Builders Association, the Iowa City Area Association of Realtors, who kindly provide this space for us to be able to have these forums each month, are big members of that group. Also want to thank our sponsor for the lunch sponsor, Collins Community Credit Union. Really appreciate that. And also they're going to be providing a $25 Casey's gift card. So if you checked in with me, your name's already in there, unless you told me, no, I don't want to be in the drawing. Today we got a lot of materials in the back of the room as well, a lot of stuff related to what we'll be discussing today, and then some normal propaganda. This, hopefully you guys have seen this Aging in Place pamphlet back there. Feel free to take one of these, take several of them if you choose to. It's a wonderful tool for communicating with family members. We kind of talked about that in the first one of the series this year, the communication must-haves. If you missed that, that's why we have Ty and Tony from City Channel 4 here recording these so that you can watch these later on in case you ever miss one. So if you don't know how to do that, let me know and I'll make sure I get you to it. I guess without any further ado, let's get to the program, because I could talk, but nobody wants to hear that. I'm going to turn it over to Scott. Scott, you take it away.
We're going to do quick introductions of our panel up here. So we'll start with Jenny.
Hello, I'm Jenny Wunderlich, and I'm with Studio H2O here in Iowa City. I'm passionate mostly, I'd say, about plumbing, but there's so many products that sound sort of silly, but with Aging in Place, as well as for me as a veteran, also talking with people maybe that have had to alter their lifestyles because of injuries or things like that. But I love talking about practical products that can be used in your home just to make things easier in mostly the kitchen and bath space.
My name's G.T. Carr. I'm with Supple Siding and Remodeling and a member of the Home Builders Association here in Iowa City. And I'll be covering some access issues with your home, and happy to be here.
I'm Andy Martin with Martin Construction. We're a remodeling company here in Iowa City, and we're also with the HBA. And, you know, both GT and I, what we do is remodeling, so this is right in our wheelhouse, and it's just kind of a specific area of it that we deal with quite a bit with the aging population.
And I'm Scott Haas. I'm with Habitat for Humanity here in Iowa City. And we have a critical repair program and Aging in Place, or I should say a program where we make critical repairs and aging in place modifications, and I help to run that. So as you can see up here on our handy dandy little slide, we have, all of us have the word CAPS right next to our names. And CAPS stands for Certified Aging in Place Specialist. It'll be something that you hear several times throughout the presentation. And you're probably sitting there saying to yourselves, well, what is that? What is CAPS? And I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, the AARP approached the National Home Builders Association and requested collaboration. And the idea was that they would create a curriculum or a training series where home builders, nurses, occupational therapists, doctors, realtors, anybody really who's associated with housing learns about some of the possible modifications for houses. And what came of it was this CAPS certification. And so what does it mean? If you are a certified aging in place specialist, what does that mean? Well, it means that you've completed the training, and the training centers on, let me see my notes here. The idea is to identify areas that could create safety issues, that could create access issues, that could lead to falls, and then also to create solutions to some of those areas in your home. And so each one of us up here has been through the training, and I feel that without any exceptions, we found it to be extremely worthwhile. And so we're going to share some of the things that we've learned in this training, but also request that you keep this in the back of your mind, that this special training was valuable, and if you decide to make some of these changes to your home that we're going to discuss later today, just keep in mind that somebody who is CAPS certified can be very useful in helping you to make those changes. All right, so first thing, why age in place? And I'm going to guess that you guys probably don't necessarily need us to spend a lot of time on this, but we're going to go over it real briefly. We found out that 90% of Iowans want to age in their homes. They don't want to move as they age. And so it's what people want. And that's because there is lots of sentimental value to your home. It's where you spent your holidays with your kids. You're comfortable in your community, but also your community and your neighborhood benefits from your presence there. So it's something that is beneficial not just to you, but also to your neighbors. And it's also economical. The cost of moving into an assisted living facility is very high. And so if you can make an investment in your home to make it livable, even for a couple extra years, we found that that's a good investment if it allows you to stay at home rather than prematurely moving to an assisted living facility. And we support the idea of aging in place. And so that's why we're here. That's why we joined the Livable Communities Housing Action Team, because we support this idea of aging in place. All right, so where to start? If you are thinking about making some modifications to your home, what should you do? Well, the first thing and probably the most important thing to do is to start early. And the reason why you should start early is because if you wait until you are a little bit weaker or not quite as strong as you used to be, then that can lead to falls and accidents in your home. And that's completely preventable. So the idea is that we want to prevent some of those issues before they even happen. Also, making modifications now can make your life easier. And if you're going to make the investment in your home, you might as well make it early so that you can enjoy some of those conveniences. And also, as GT brought up while we were preparing for this presentation, construction doesn't happen in a day. And it's a process that can take certainly months, if not years, until you complete all of the modifications to make your home safe and accessible. So the earlier that you start, the better off you'll be. So after you've decided to start making modifications, the second thing that you should do is make a team. And it's kind of the old idea that two heads are better than one. And if you have people looking at your home from different perspectives, then you'll have a better experience overall, but also your home will better fit your needs and your abilities in the future. So who should be on your team? Of course, you and your family. And it's important to include your family because your family has your best interests at heart, but also they'll encourage you to look out for what's best for you. So when my grandpa was going through this about 2 or 3 years ago, it was my dad and his brother who encouraged him to move his laundry facility upstairs. He didn't want to do it. He thought it would devalue his home, but it was my dad and my uncle who said, go ahead and do it. You'll be happy in the end. And in the end, he was able to stay in his home all the way up until about 6 weeks before he passed. So it was really important to have their input in this process. Second, you should include a medical professional. Medical professional can be a nurse, physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a doctor. And the idea is that a medical professional will understand the process of aging far better than your family members. They'll understand diagnoses better than any of us up here. They'll be able to bring a different perspective that somebody like Andy would maybe overlook. And so it's really important, not that Andy's bad or anything, but they just bring a different base of knowledge that they can lean on to make the projects even more successful. So definitely make sure that you include a medical professional. And then a contractor. And like I said before, we recommend CAPS, not just because it's in our self-interest, but because we really believe in the training that we got. And we believe that it was high-quality training and that we learned a lot through going through this. And one of the important things of the training is to not rely strictly on your knowledge. So if your contractor comes in and he says, we're going to do this, and 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 doesn't ask you any questions, doesn't ask your family any questions, and doesn't ask a medical professional or any questions, that's maybe somebody that you want to stay away from. And that's kind of the important idea. After you've assembled your team, then you need to start figuring out what information you should share with your team. And you don't have to share all of this information with everybody. Some of the information you'll feel really comfortable sharing with your family, but not your contractor. Some of the information you'll feel comfortable sharing with a medical professional, but not your family. So the idea isn't that you share everything with everybody on your team, but that you share this important information with at least somebody. Include any diagnoses that you have. Just because maybe you're not showing severe symptoms of multiple sclerosis, for example, now, but you might in the future. So it's important to share that information with your team so that they can create a plan that best fits not just your needs now, but what your needs will be in the future. Also include more minor things, aches, pains, anything that you have problems accessing. I would recommend writing a list and sharing that information, because good design can make your life a lot easier and make some of these issues that you normally would just endure can kind of make them obsolete. In some cases, not all cases, no promises. And then everyday tasks that you find difficult. We were working with a gentleman in Washington about a year ago, and just in talking with him and asking him some questions, we found out that getting off the toilet was really difficult for him. And we were able to have a simple solution that made his life much better. And it's just a simple everyday activity that he didn't think was an issue until we started to ask him questions. So some of those everyday activities, just make note and share it with your team.
And you don't have to always share that I would recommend not always in front of that other person that's going through those things, which I know can seem self-explanatory, but sometimes, especially when we're working maybe with a parent-child, or sometimes even amongst partners or spouses, that they don't want to say out loud to me that he has a really hard time with this, right? That's going to make him uncomfortable or feel bad that this other person is sharing this. But if you can share that separately with the team, I highly, highly recommend that, because it helps tremendously, and we can help on the team later to say, let's say I can suggest to add a grab bar here where it's not the uncomfortable spouse saying, he needs a grab bar in the shower, this is ridiculous. We have a lot of that, and that just totally derails how that person's feeling. They don't want to stay. This is not good. Where, oh, you know, I personally have a grab bar in every single one of my bathrooms, even my kids' one. And then that sort of deflates, which is a true statement, and I just built brand new. Like that, I chose to do that. Like, oh, well, you did that. Okay. You know, I can deflate that compared to this, you know, sort of anger of, I don't need that. You know, share it separately. Like, hey, there's some balance issues. She has some balance issues, or she gets confused. You know, tell us separately if you're not comfortable. That goes a long way towards everybody helping.
Tools that you use to complete everyday tasks. People are very innovative. We see a lot of creative uses for tools. And again, no promises, but sometimes good design in your home can make the need for those tools unnecessary. And then, key thing, start the process early. If you're thinking about aging in your home, start thinking about some of the modifications that you would like to make as soon as you leave today. All right, without further ado, we're going to go over we'll go over this real briefly because next month we're going to have an entire forum on falls prevention. But we'll just talk about some general things, and then we'll move on to GT and entryways. So the next session will be September 11th. Please join us. We'll go into a lot more depth about what you can do to prevent falls in your home. But some basic things, lighting, good lighting in your house, good lighting in each room, the hallways, the exterior entrances. Good lighting can prevent a lot of falls. So included in that are using LED light bulbs. All you have to do is change them once every 10 years or so, and you'll be in good shape. Rocker switches, especially if you maybe have some weakness in your hands or some arthritis, a rocker switch can make your life much easier. It's much easier to press the button than it is to actually grab onto something. But it's also universal. It works for a child and it works for an adult. So a simple solution that is certainly not costly.
What's a rocker switch?
It's a paddle.
It's a paddle. I'm certain that you've seen them, so.
Yeah. You know, you push the top part to have it turn on, you push the bottom part to turn it off.
I don't have a picture about that, sorry. And then night lights. Night lights, again, it seems like a very simple thing to do, but when you wake up in the middle of the night and maybe you just had a bad dream about Fran McCaffrey screaming at you or something, you're not really thinking clearly, you can't really see very well, and then you run into the wall or something like that, or you run into the door. But a nightlight it's a simple solution, it's cost effective, and it can really prevent some safety issues. Rugs, transitions, and carpeting. Again, we see lots of problems with these. You may have a favorite rug, but it might not be doing you any favors. So something that we see frequently, whoops, oh no, who did that? There we go. Something that we see frequently, old rugs tend to bunch up. If it's starting to bunch up like that, it might be time to get rid of it. Another thing with rugs is to get a rug with some backing on it so that it doesn't move around, especially on hardwood floors or some floors that are a little bit slippery, but keep that rug in place. Something else, transitions. Again, something that we see frequently when you're moving from one surface to the next, whether it be tile to carpet, carpet to hardwood floors. There's often there's a transition where you're trying to make up the difference in height. And those can become trip hazards very easily. So share that with your team that you're working with. And then carpeting. Carpeting is great. It looks really nice, but it can, after a while, it can start to bunch up. And so if your carpet is starting to look like this, you should consider maybe getting it stretched out or maybe replacing it with something that won't bunch up. So anyways, more information about falls prevention, please join us next month. Okay, so I'm gonna kick it over to, whoops, forgot one more thing. Handrails on stairs. It's great to have handrails on both sides. It's completely logical. I don't understand why all stairwells don't have handrails on both sides. It doesn't take anything away, and it just gives you something else extra to balance on. And then one other thing that you wouldn't necessarily think about is contrasting colors. If your walls and your floors are all the same color, then it's really easy, especially if you don't have your glasses on or you just had that nightmare about Fran McCaffrey. It's really easy to just run into the kitchen cabinet or to trip over something. So the more contrasting colors that you can have, the better and more safe it is for your house. See, there's not a very good example of contrasting colors. Okay, I'm going to send it over to GT, who's going to talk to you about entry and doorways.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, my name's GT Carr, and we do a lot of remodeling in the Iowa City area. Thank you. One of the things that we run into when you look at aging in place is kind of access to the home and how you're going to get in. And most of the work that we deal with is an existing housing stock. So we don't have the luxury of maybe, designing an entire house around, an accessibility issue. So we're dealing with hallways that are 3 foot wide and maybe some narrower doors. But I think one of the things that I've learned throughout the years of doing work in the area and also through our CAP certification is that there are ways to, think outside the box and allow people to stay in their homes. So one of the first things that we deal with, and I think probably one of the most rewarding things we do, is just access with ramps. You bring up that other slide. Yeah. So everybody's seen them. You drive around and you see somebody kind of, put a ramp up, may be temporary, may be permanent, and it certainly serves its purpose. There's things that we try to consider, and there's things that we try and design around. That being said, I think Andy and I have had several conversations about this where there's rarely, if ever, a perfect situation that we can make all of this work and have the 1 inch to 20 ratio that we want, and because we would have ramps that were 3 miles long and then those types of things. But it's still a way to get into the home. What you see here, this certainly is serving its purpose and getting somebody in. Some pros and cons here. What we're looking at is we'd kind of like to have at least a 3'3" minimum width, and that gives you some room to, if you're in a chair or a walker, be able to get them up there. Looks like we have that. I would assume that's close to 4 feet looking at the plywood, so that's great. Concerns that we have as we're looking at this, though, would be, are the guardrails adequate? If you look on the side, thank you. I'm sorry for the feedback. Right here, we have, a sideboard that's kind of preventing people from going over the edge, which is great. But here in the middle, pretty vulnerable and not a super beat potentially. Without seeing it in person, the handrail might not quite be adequate enough to keep somebody from falling through there, and we want to prevent additional injury. So maybe a way to improve this even more would be getting on additional handrails on the side just to prevent people from falling through. And then the other thing that, if you look at this and you can kind of see, to me, the plywood surface that you'd walk on looks wet. Maybe it rained. So another consideration is just, hey, do we need to add something to that to maybe make it a little less slippery? Maybe some, textured strips or some sort of markings to create some contrast would probably be a way to improve this. But overall, it certainly gets them up there. And if you look, there's also a transition when you get to the top here that you could, if you were in a walker or in a wheelchair, turn to open the door, and that's another important consideration. So they had a lot of room here parallel to the driveway to work with. So this was probably a pretty easy one to try to fit. Sometimes we don't have that. I'm going to flip the slide.
Another thing, GT mentioned it, but plywood it's not an adequate cover. So we were contacted by a woman here in Iowa City who said she was really concerned about her ramp because in the winter it was very slippery, and she was essentially homebound from December until the beginning of March because she couldn't get up and down in her chair. And so we went out there and we made some changes. One of the things that we were most concerned about is this surface. So if somebody comes and says, hey, we're going to put some plywood on your ramp, yeah, that's maybe going to save you a little bit of money, but it's not going to be an adequate ramp.
And you can see in this fantastic segue, one of the notes I made in this slide is you can see the actual walking surface now is deck boards. So at a bare minimum, we have ways for moisture to get through and kind of melt off. And I mean, it's a similar surface that we would use on a normal deck. So you've got decent walkability. We have in the past added additional, the stick-on strips that kind of have the textures to help you, in steeper areas so we don't fall. But this is another good example. Again, we've got a little beefier handrails, which is great. And depending on where we're at with the municipality and where we're at with the height off the ground, we may have to add additional bracing on the side for handrails so we don't have that fall issue in between the railings here. But kind of the same thing we had. We've also got, looks like a landing up top, and at the bottom right here, sorry, I'm at a terrible angle. There's a nice transition that's a different color, different surface, and it looks pretty smooth. So when you come down that ramp, you're not going to have a tripping hazard there. So things that we consider when we would do a site visit, and these are identified in our CAPS training, is just the location where we'd put the ramp. So when you're looking at your potential home, ideally it'd be in the main door where you go in and out of the most time. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes there's steps, sometimes there's setback issues. So you may have to move it to a different location, but trying to figure out the best location. Lighting, so if you have a situation like this, maybe there needs to be some lighting. There's probably some by the house, but maybe you add some on the post or something as you walk out, and then maybe a separate post out here, just so when you're coming at night, people can see and they're not disoriented as they're going off. Transitions we mentioned about, again, here's at the sidewalk and the top. Those are important areas because you think you're fine on the ramp, but if you have a 4-inch drop, that's just asking for trouble. And the visual cues, kind of changing colors or maybe surfaces so you can really identify those. If you have difficulty seeing or the conditions aren't great, it's foggy, it's wet, you want to be able to have some contrast so you can make that out. And then a big one that Scott mentioned earlier is weather protection. So in this situation, this is all going to have to be maintained in the wintertime. We're going to have to make sure we don't have ice going down here and we're like doing a bobsled thing. That would not be good. And then the final consideration, which is always nice, but probably the lowest on the list of priorities, is just trying to make it look nice aesthetically. I've seen some really nice ramps, probably more in public settings that you've seen around town where they can do landscaping, planter boxes, et cetera, so it's not quite as noticeable. And I really get excited about those because if we can design that in, that it's people are walking into the house and want to go that way, there tends to be less, shame or embarrassment about, oh, I need a ramp and it's going to take away from the house and what are you going to do when I sell it? If we can design it in and it looks good, it's great. Prime example of that, we've done work for clients where we did plan ahead and we might have done a small addition for them with the deck while we were still doing steps. Great. We knew that we might have had some diseases that were going to progress and we might have some mobility issues. So in our original design, we had a removable rail that we could put a ramp off the side of the addition, already pre-approved with the city. Footings were poured before when we built the deck, so it was all inspected at that time. A year or two later, we put the ramp in. Everybody's happy, they can still use it, and because we planned ahead and it was designed in, it wasn't as big of a deal. So those are kind of considerations as you look at the ramp. I think there's one more slide, if you don't mind.
Question?
Yeah.
Okay, the cost of a lot of these ramps, wouldn't it just be more beneficial to put in one of the lifts?
We're going there. Yeah, it may, and it may not. We're gonna actually
Hang on,
talk about
real
lifts
quick,
here in
GT.
yeah.
The question was, wouldn't it just be more beneficial to put in a lift? And GT is going to talk about that right
Sorry,
now.
thank you, I forgot about that.
Because over at my house, I have a deck that's like almost 15 feet up when you come in.
Mm-hmm.
And cost in terms of, I wouldn't have a ramp to begin with, but pricing out an elevator wasn't that much. And they've improved these little elevators
Right.
immensely.
Yep.
And they're very wheelchair ramp friendly. And that, the cost of this would be more than the cost of the other.
Yeah, there's certainly, agree. The question, just to clarify, are we getting feedback or?
You're all right.
Okay.
I was just gonna take this.
So the question was really comparing cost ramps to elevators, and I think it's an extremely valid point. Obviously, one of the first things that you would do is you're looking at trying to address this issue in your own home, and you're kind of forming your team, is you're going to look at those things. And I think certainly a CAP certified remodeling contractor is going to come in, and if you live in a house where you have 20 steps going up, you're probably not going to have room, even if you had unlimited funds to take 15 switchbacks to get the ramp up there. So yes, there's chair lifts, there's elevators, there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. And that would just be another member of the team that we would add to it. There'd be somebody like Andy or myself would probably have some construction that we would do. We would not be actually installing that lift or elevator, but we would partner with a certified installer that knew what they needed to do, and we'd have electricians and everything, but you'd still need a remodeling contractor. But certainly at the end of the day, every house is going to be unique. Does that answer your question?
Segue.
Yeah.
City code.
Yes. So the yes, go ahead.
What about the feasibility of ramping inside, like a 3-bay garage?
We've done that. Another story, when you look at weather, we had a client contact us a couple years ago. We had done some previous work, and there just wasn't a great deal of space for a ramp outside. So we took part of their 2-car garage, added a ramp, and were able to get almost all of the things that we needed. There wasn't quite enough room for the full 60-inch landing at the top, but that can be done as well, and it can be removed later on.
And so is there any stipulation as it relates to code and such,
Yep.
once it's inside?
What we do with them generally is we're going to talk to, whether it's City of Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, I'll talk to the inspector prior to doing it, and I've had somewhere where we could get 99% of the stipulations they wanted, and they understood that, hey, this is a temporary thing, and we can allow this to happen. I mean, we don't just throw them up, but
Well, because you're not going to get 1 to 20 in a garage.
no, not have it all in the garage, but yeah. So there's a little bit of give and take, and it's just on a case-by-case basis, but yes.
The picture's covered up now, but the one on the right, how much, and I know it's a gross, it's a guesstimate, but what does something like that cost?
I don't think I'm comfortable quoting in a forum like this because there's so many variables. But to speak to the funding, she was asking about cost and those types of things. I would say that a contractor should be able to go out during the process, give you ranges. I know in the past we've had some clients who've gotten assistance various ways, and I think Scott will speak to that as well. We've had some, I think, through veterans programs, put up temporary ones that we've helped lay out footings and those types of things. So there's different ways to do it.
So you're not under 3,000, 5,000?
There are so many things. We've done them for hundreds and we've done them for thousands. There's so many. I mean, it's like everything else. How much is a house? How much is a car? They're all over the board. So yeah. Certainly probably less expensive than moving out of the house and finding an alternative. I would be comfortable saying that. So if you want to go to, if you don't mind, there's the lift, but I just wanted to mention the final, can you go back one? Thank you. Just a final version here, and I'm not sure where you got this picture, Scott, but this is kind of a nice hybrid, in my opinion, of the other two. We've got some, this would, in my opinion, probably meet almost every code requirement we had. We've got a little bit more spindles and railing over here. They kind of went along the side of the house here, so it's less noticeable. There might be, we get into situations where you may have to temper those windows, but easy enough to do. But this to me is a nice, other than maybe weather protection, it works. There's a nice transition to the sidewalk there. So I think that looks pretty nice, and I think that would be a doable project. So if we get into a situation where all these houses that have ramps, you notice that the doorway's a foot or two off of the ground. We get into a situation where the house is built on a hill and you've got to go up 10 feet just to get to the outside of the landing. Maybe that's when we're looking at the lifts or the elevator. And I think we have, the next one is, yep, this is a lift. And it's not really high off the ground here. You can see there's some stairs, but it's in a covered area, and they presumably did not have room to go out into the yard or out in the side yard. So this is an alternative where this would flip up and they could safely get into the house and hopefully open the door there. So that, again, is something that probably a little bit more involved, where you're going to need a certified equipment specialist that sells that product, installs that product, along with an electrician and potentially a contractor. So,
But yeah, oftentimes they are cost competitive though.
same situation here, very similar, just a probably different manufacturer. And I think the considerations are the same with these. We just need to make sure that everything else around the area works. We're not taking up driveway space, and you can still, keep it clean in the wintertime and those types of things. So the next category we have is doorways. And when we spoke as a group kind of planning this, I'm going to lump doorways into hallways and everything else as you kind of travel and try to get around the house. I think it's important that you have the ability to add grab bars and that you have as wide open free space as we can. So typically what we see, if you want to flip those through, this is kind of a sliding barn door, very popular now. This may or may not be a good alternative, but we have a lot of clients and jobs that we're just changing or widening one door, maybe for access to a bedroom or to a bathroom, and trying to get part of the house so they can get through with the walker or a wheelchair, and that is doable. There's ways to do that. Flip the slide. Yep. I'm not sure if yeah. And this is, very similar to the other barn style door. It's just a pocket door. Difference being this goes inside the wall. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes that can be an issue. If you've ever tried to operate those, you can have fantastic hands in trying to get in and do those. So we've modified some of those. They may not go all the way into the hole, but there's different hardware mechanisms that we can do for access on that. And then finally, I think you just have a regular door. Oh, never mind. A regular door slot, where we can maybe take a 32-inch door and make it a 36 like this and just widen it, and that may be enough too, and there's different handles. But again, I think the takeaways that I'd love you to have today is create the team, think outside the box a little bit, and get some brainstorming going on with the team that you create, and then also to plan ahead. Some of the stuff does not need to be, we fell, I had surgery, and now I have a mobility issue. Think about it now, because you can be 75 or 17 and have a mobility issue. You can have friends and family that need it. I just think it's something that should always be designed in if possible. I think we're getting that way, but even in your own home as you're doing other remodeling, and Andy is going to talk about this, in the kitchens, I know, but there's things that you can do early on, like that example I told you where you think about a ramp that you may or may not need, and save yourself a lot of grief down the road. So any questions about this before we move on? Yes?
Are there dimensions minimum for the landings?
Yes, 60 inches by that width is what they recommend. But it's funny because I reviewed all our notes from CAP certification again this morning. And I think one of the reasons I like the program is they have some guidelines, and there's certainly code requirements as well. But they, in their first or second paragraph, say, while these are all great, we understand that there's limitations. There's no perfect scenario. So, for instance, that 1:20 ratio or the 60 by 3'3" landing that we want, we may have to do a 3'2", but is that better than no landing at all? Yeah, so every situation is going to be a little different. And if we have the resources if you want to see specifics. I didn't want to get into all of the minimums because Some of you may not be interested in that, but any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to kick it over to Jenny, who's going to talk to us about bathrooms.
You want this?
Thanks. Yeah. That'd be great. I move a lot while I talk, so it's a lot easier if I can. But
I remember that about you.
so I get to talk about the place where the most falls happen in your home, and that is the bathroom. And people forget there are very, very simple ways often that you can prevent that, or at least I think we talk about think about it. Okay, so I'm going to say take beyond think about it and act on it. Please do not wait because everything always takes longer than you think. Especially to get a qualified contractor, I think these guys would tell you hands down, like they might be a few months out. So when people come in to talk to me in the showroom and they're like, well, I need this done, and the people I want to send them to that are qualified, that are going to do a good job, are probably not available unless it's like super emergency. And these guys, I know, they do night calls, they do things like that. But when you want a major remodel, we're talking months, even a year ahead of time. You sit here, you leave here going, we should probably call someone to start the ball rolling. Even if it's a matter of, wow, I'd like to add a grab bar. If you could toss up my first, that'd be great. So, because often, right, there's something we are stepping over somewhere in our bathroom. If you all think about it right now, somewhere in your bathroom you are probably having to either step over a tub or at least some sort of shower lip, unless you already have that zero entry shower, which is fantastic. Most people do not. Actually, here we go. If you do not have a zero entry shower in your house, please raise your hand. If you do not have a zero entry, yeah, most of us, right? I haven't designed a house, I don't. I have a tub in my master because I'm a tub person. So what did I add into my tub in my new house I built 2 years ago? A grab bar, actually, and I love it because I'm a tub person. I want to be able to get in and out safely. So you add one, but what do you need to have a good grab bar? You got to have backing. You have to have quality backing behind the wall. And I know that at local pharmacies there are suction cup things, and I've never used one of those. But I do know you do not want to just go get a grab bar and try to nail it into your fiberglass shower. Please do not do that. Because I tell you what, I have had plenty of people walk in, oh yeah, my son came over and he said it'll be no problem, and it pulled right out of the wall. Yes, it did. Goodness. So, but those lips right there, I tell people, okay, if this is my shower that I'm stepping into, right? Let's say I'm about to get in. Well, maybe it's easier for you. There's my shower. I'm not looking at you, sorry. Okay, you want a vertical right here to step over. It's all about transitions. Transitions just like here. Hey, they put something down so I don't trip over this cord. Thank you. So, stepping over. Then I say have a horizontal along the back wall. Because I tell you what, if you're balancing, or for me, even if I'm shaving my legs, or when I have 3 kiddos and I'm pregnant, I get super big and awkward. Like, this is not just for aging. I try to go over and over. Like, this is like living, and I talk at smart design. Smart design. This is not just let me age well. This is just be wise. Be wise with where things might happen. So, transitions over, maybe it's taking out the tub. It's like, you know what? Maybe you're not a tub person. I'm a tub person. If you're like, I'm not a tub person, I just want to take a shower, take out the tub. Because if you're having to get in and out of it and you've taken a bath once in the past year, goodness, get rid of it and put a shower. It's not necessary for you. For me, man, that's my respite. Golly, I work hard. I want to come home. I want to take a bath. If that's not you, man, put in a shower. Next. Okay, so this seat, I love this seat because it actually fits in a 60 by 30 shower. 30 inches is not very wide. And in Iowa City, a lot of old homes do not have that much space. So if you were going to take out a tub and put in a shower, a seat like this, and it has little sticky feet so it doesn't, tip over easily. And I mean, I can easily fit on that, and people like that. And a shower like this has a smaller threshold, right? You're not stepping over 8 inches like in an old fiberglass. That's about 4.5 inches on that lip. Then good contractors too, like, hey, let's do a little lift up on your flooring. Sometimes people don't think about, you can sometimes put an extra layer so your step up isn't as high. Next, please. So this, right, there are some ideal things about this and some that aren't. What's great about this is it's all level, right? There's no step to get into the shower. But one thing is those big tiles can get very slippery. You want small tiles. Those big ones, if you think about just like when you have plain concrete that gets wet, we camp at the State Fair. I'm headed right back there after this. And those, I tell you what, those bathhouses that are straight concrete getting all wet, oh my goodness, we have had more falls there. And you got a huge multi-generational there. When you have big, large areas, please don't get large tiles. I don't care how beautiful they are. I'm sure they look great. Maybe pick them out. No. Small. It'll help you not fall. I love that they have multiple grab bars in here. And I also love that, no, you're good. So that long one, see how, look, they have my vertical one and they've got my horizontal. That vertical, right, these can look nice. I tell people when they come in, these do not have to look like you are in a hospital. They don't. There are really nice looking ones. I have a decorative chrome one in my master that matches my growy shower stuff, and I like that it looks nice. Some people don't care. Some people are like, I'm spending $30 on a grab bar and I don't care if it matches anything else. That is just fine. If that is not you, there are decorative ones that can coordinate with other items. They can also be toilet paper holders that also are grab bars. It's not a big giant bar next to your toilet. It just has a nice little hook on it. You can hold your towel. People are like, oh, that'd be great. I don't have to have a big bar next to my toilet, but I can still push up on it. Yes, you can. There are cool products out there. Just try to think outside the box. I love that GT said that. Okay, next. Walk-in tubs. These can be super polarizing, right? We could all raise our hands here and half of you be like, I'm never putting a walk-in tub anywhere. I hate how it looks. It's awful. And then you're going to have other people going, goodness, I don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars in an assisted living facility if I can bathe in my own home. It is worth it to me. And they can make it look as nice as possible. You say, Andy, GT, golly, I'm biting the bullet and I'm getting one of these and I know they're costly, but I'm a bath person and I love to take a bath. And wow, I found out that there's actually like a hydrotherapy that cleans, that doesn't use chemicals. Wow, I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't even, my mom, who it's really hard for her to bathe, and this is a way that she could clean herself, no problem. There's so much dignity in that. We're doing it. We're gonna do it. Okay. Then let's take that step. This one has, right, an out-swinging door, which a lot of times gives you more space to come in and out of the tub. But what sometimes in these old homes, right, boom, what are you going to hit sometimes with that door? A toilet. There's a toilet right outside your tub. Because so often you walk in here, right, and there was a sink, and there was a toilet, and there's a tub. A lot of bathrooms that way. So they make in-swinging door walk-in tubs. You know, there are options, there are sizes. A lot of times lately people have been turning them into like tub showers. So they tile up around the walls, put a normal control and shower head. Because if you're taking out in the master the shower, and a lot of times it's one person that needs to use this more than the other. So I love that they talked about talk to the family. There are more people involved usually that are going to use the space. So that's just a nice mutual respect going, okay, if you're more a shower person and the other person's more a bath person, you could talk about, could we turn it into a shower so if I can get in the tub, shut the door, I don't have to fill it, and I just want to use it as a shower. Okay. Some people are like, well, how am I going to do this and have two separate things? You don't have to. You can create a shower in the same space. Seats, right? Again, they don't have to look how everybody pictures them usually. They're nice teak seats that folds up and out of the way. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to have one I have to drag in and out, or suction cup feet. I don't like that look. Lots of options, lots of finishes that just look sharp. You can put in a gorgeous tile shower, and they've different sizes as well, and weight limits. Toilets. Okay, this is an easy change. Really, this is not saying, GT, rip up my floor and do all zero entry, which is an extensive remodel. It is. You just need to know that. It's going to take time and take money. Say, oh, Andy, I think I just want a taller toilet because I'm going like this right? When I try to find, because all my toilets are tall at my house, which is about 16.5 inches to the top of the bowl. So you can go home and measure, or you know already, like, oh, wow, I think my, daughter's house always seemed like taller toilets. That there's so much benefit to me, at least, and I'm 5'8", so I realize not everybody needs this, but oh my goodness, in your knees, to only have to go with a seat to about 17 inches, that is usually a very, very easy change. Change your toilets to taller toilets. Then they also have, see that night light kind of going on in that toilet seat? You can have like a night light in your seat, which might sound sort of silly, but I tell you what, if my grandfather in the middle of the night is going to the bathroom, to have that area lit up, in all honesty, is just smart. That's smart. My grandmother would have really appreciated that. Really, for cleanability, like sometimes we just don't think about, like, we don't want to talk about, I talk to people about a lot of uncomfortable things. And you know what, if I can get them to talk about it, I can usually find a better product for them if they're willing to say, listen, I hate cleaning this, this, and this because we can't see in the middle of the night when we're going to the bathroom. All right, let's come up with a solution. It isn't a solution if it doesn't really work for you. So, bidet seats, man, these are coming hot. If you've ever traveled to Europe, they are everywhere, and they are coming here more and more. So the key thing, if you want heated water, which most people do, if they're being sprayed down there, is that you need an electrical outlet. And you can't just throw an electrical outlet up. Usually, it's got to be on a very specific side of the toilet, just so you know, if you don't have space to run that cord. But again, this, oh goodness, there's a lady up in Victor. She was in a wheelchair, and her husband had to help her extensively with bathing and cleaning, and she was very embarrassed about it. And you could tell he was tired as the caregiver, and it was very challenging. So she ended up getting a walk-in tub that turned into a big shower, and she wanted a rain head, and we did all this fun stuff so she could have her fun shower. They had enough room and money. He had a separate walk-in shower for him, but she got a bidet toilet seat. And I tell you what, when I talked to her, she had never been more happy that she could get clean without her husband's help there. It was huge. That was huge. And I love the example. People are like, well, why would you need that? Well, it's so funny. If you think about like a baby, right? We don't wipe babies' bottoms with dry paper towels, right? Do we do that? Would you take a dry paper towel to this baby and be like, hey, let me wipe all this gunk off your bottom? Like, they'd get raw and it would be painful. So people in Europe think we're nuts. Like, why do you use dry paper on your bum? Make it wet. Like, that's really what is nice about a bidet seat. There's a little wand. It sprays you with warm water. There's even a heated seat. Oh, goodness. But that is helping for cleanability. So don't discount that. If you can say, hey, I've got a great electrician that I know that could put an outlet here for me, hook it up. Give it a try. I guarantee you, most people, if they have switched to that, are so happy and want more in their home or wherever else they would move. Grab bars, do not use your towel racks as grab bars, please, because your towel bars are not grab bars. And more often than not, they get pulled out, right, because we do that. But you can use grab bars in strategic locations for other items. And now there are new accessories like on a grab bar that you can add a little hook, like if you wanted to hang a little towel. It's just knowing that grab bars are to grab and towel bars are not. I cannot tell you the number of people like, oh no, I just grabbed the towel bar. And inside my stomach is dropping going, please, Lord, help them not to fall next time they grab that. And they fall and it pulls out. So, and usually when you fall, right, you've got more weight behind going down to that. So just a reminder of those, just to be careful. Other thing people tend to not think about, what are your handles? So what are your handles in your shower right now? Do you have an old crystal ball that might be hard to turn, like if you've got arthritis? A lever, just a simple lever is easier. We also have, right, style is important to a lot of people. There's some really cool, sharp, squared off handles and faucets right now that are really trendy. But then I talk to people and I say, okay, so if you would fall in the shower and hit this super sharp point, on your tub spout, we're talking huge gash that's going to happen, even for kiddos. Like, listen, my 5-year-old son is crazy in that tub. Like, if he would just clonk right into that, right? Like, oh, it looks really cool. Yes, it does. But I wouldn't want to run into it. Or, right, as we get older, we lose, right, moisture. That's why we bruise more easily, right? And our skin gets thinner. So if you, in a shower even, like they call it the wall supply elbow, anyway, some of those now are square and really pointy. If you would hit your hand and just knock your hand on that, like that's a bruise or a cut pretty easily. So just thinking through walking in your space, like this has a lot of trip hazards. This is the, like don't trip over that. But then it looks like they've added a grab bar to the tub there and a long one next to the toilet. But just remembering too, so we've got this little table, like right in front, like how are you gonna grab the grab bar over this little table? Just things sometimes we forget if we've used it over and over. It's amazing. That's why you have a team. You have a team that walks in and can tell you and say, I think this is why maybe you're getting tripped up, maybe because of the rug, maybe because of something else. And having someone, I would say a lot of times having that extra non-family that can speak some of those things as well can be easier, right? Because it's hard. You want the family there, but if you have an outside person that can say some of those maybe tough items going, yeah, maybe having all of this in your tub could be causing some issues maybe, or when you fall. Even this morning, I totally thought about I was going to speaking today, and I started to get the slip. I was rushing. Do you ever rush in the bathroom? Right? We rush. We're like, oh my goodness, we live out on a farm, and I ran back home to get changed, and I had used like body wash, and I have a pump, and some had pumped into my tub. Okay, so I've got body wash on the floor. I'm trying to wash my hair really fast. My son is trying to complain about not getting ready. And so I'm here and I just slipped in my tub. And I, sure enough, grabbed that grab bar and I'm like, I'm going to mention that today. I'm going to mention today because it happened to me today because I'm in a rush and I got a slippery, bottom on the tub, but just having those things can, really, really prevent any issues. I would not have wanted to fall right before I came here and say, I'm supposed to go run in the scavenger hunt at the state fair tomorrow, and I can't do that with a bum ankle. So think about it ahead of time.
Okay, we're going to skip ahead to kitchens. We had something else planned for you, but because of time considerations, we're going to bail on it. So go ahead, Andy, and talk to us a little bit about kitchens.
Kitchens are not as fall-prone as bathrooms, but they are a room that we spend a lot of time in, and you may not always even think about the amount of time you spend in there, but obviously you're dealing with all different kinds of things. You're dealing with heat and you're trying to work in that space. So they're an important space too. And the big issue I see in most kitchens is maneuverability and and oftentimes that's how it's laid out. And flooring's a big issue too, because you need to have a durable flooring in there. So a lot of times that ends up being something that's a little bit more slippery than say carpet, or than even hardwood is not necessarily something people put in kitchens too often either. So here's an example of a kitchen that has several issues with it. The flooring, you've got that rug there that looks like that's a good trip hazard. And then we've got the large format glossy tile, which is of course slippery as well. And then the tile matches the walls. It doesn't match the cabinets, so we've got that going for us. But that's a beautiful kitchen. But there are some issues there in terms of safety.
Ready for the next one?
I think I am, yeah. Okay. So in here, you've got, this is again a different kitchen. It's got some advantages that way. So you do have hardwood, which is not a problem for me personally in a kitchen, and a lot of people disagree on that, but I have no issues with it. And you've got a different color floor than you do cabinets in this situation. I like the lighting in this kitchen as well. It looks like we've got good general lighting and we've got task lighting. And then you've got contrasting colors for the cabinets. You've got a nice wide alleyway there. You can see between the island and the perimeter cabinets. And then it looks like we've got a few different workspaces. So this is kind of ideal in a lot of ways in that it's a nice, big, expensive kitchen, But there are principles you can put into play there that are not necessarily expensive to do. Let's go. Okay, so yeah, in the kitchen you're doing food preparation. So we've got a couple of different areas there. To prep, that's okay. We can go with this one.
Okay.
So here we've got a cooktop, and it's got a couple of advantages to it, in that it is easy to clean, right? It's smooth. You may not be able to tell from this picture, but in that type of cooktop, it also lights up whenever it gets hot, so you can see if you've got a hot surface or not. And then the other thing we've got here is that the cooktop is at waist height, and we've got a separate oven somewhere else, up, one would imagine. And so that oven is probably raised up too, so you've got that advantage where you're lifting the heavy items in and out of the oven, and you're not down around your knees, you're up at waist, between your waist and your shoulders, which is optimal for carrying things and for maneuvering.
You also have the controls right here.
Oh yeah, thank you. And we do have the controls in the front of the cooktop. A lot of the old gas stoves, or even the electric ones, you've got the knobs at the back of the stove, which can create problems in terms of you're having to reach across a hot thing, maybe even across a hot pan or something to reach over and try and get to those controls. And sometimes you're trying to get to those in a hurry if you cook like I do. You got to turn down that heat fast, right? So it's good to have those controls in the front. And here we have, maybe that's even the stove for that previous cooktop. It's lower, right? It's below counter height, which is not ideal, but it does have the sideways door. And that can be one way to work around that type of an issue, so you're not having to reach over the door to reach in and grab the turkey or the casserole and pull that extra weight back towards you. So that can be a good solution there. And then here, if you don't want to pony up for the new however many $1,000 oven there that's got the sideways door, one solution that you could come up with is to have a countertop in front of the oven, so that when you reach in, you have some place to put that immediately. You know, because that could be a heavy lift to get the thing out of the oven, and to have a place to put it immediately is a great idea. And even if it's not a custom solution like that where you're pulling it out, just knowing that next to the oven you've got a place to put things, and next to the refrigerator, having a place to put things within close distance, that can make a big difference. And then in terms of storage, that would be another big factor in a kitchen, right? So this one, you've got lights in the cabinets, and that can be a great way to go, especially down for lower cabinets. But if you don't want to do that, just keeping in mind that having typically narrower cabinets, you don't have as much storage, but you don't lose the stuff in the back. So you can see what's in there, and you can get at it more easily. And if you do have deeper cabinets, then you might want to go with the pull-out drawers. And there are custom situations like this. So that would be, that's set up for an ADA situation where you can grab that bar and pull down and pull the things to you instead of having to reach up and get at the items up there. And that's an aftermarket solution a lot of times where you can get that. You know, you may have limitations in terms of sizes, but a lot of times that can work for you. And that can be, while it's maybe an expensive piece of equipment, it's probably a lot cheaper than redoing your whole cabinet, or your whole cabinets, or your whole kitchen. So there are piecemeal solutions that don't involve redesigning your whole kitchen, and this is a good example of that. And this can be another one, another way to do it. You could maybe remove a cabinet and just put in a little wheeled cart, and that can give you additional work surface. So maybe that cart could be what you put in front of the stove to put the item down right on there. Or you could use it as you need to. And then you can get at the items down in there a little easier too, because you're not trying to reach underneath the countertop, you have it a little more out in the open. And there's the pull-out drawers I was talking about. Those can be a great a great solution for either lower cabinets, or if you have a full height pantry that's really deep, they can be a great way to get back at that. And a lot of times those can be retrofitted as well. It's really common to see around town, but you know, in any home built from the 50s onwards, you might have a closet type pantry that's, you know, drywalled in and it has a big door on it. And sometimes those can work against you because there's stuff back there, you know that it's back there, but you don't know what it is anymore because it's been 5 years since you've seen it. So you can add in these pull-out drawers, and they've gotten the glides have gotten a lot better so that they're strong and they're sturdy. And you could add something like that, and again, you're not necessarily redoing the whole kitchen just to get that storage, but you can really make a big difference that way. There's a great spice rack, or just another pull-out solution. Kitchens are almost infinite in the possibilities that you can do to improve them. Yeah. And so my mom, they redid their kitchen, and this is one of her favorite things. One of the things they did was they have 38-inch, so that all her countertops are a couple inches higher, and she loves that. And they're 5'8" and 5'10", they're not tall people. But her favorite thing is the dishwasher. They raised that up, and so now she doesn't have to bend over to put away all the dishes all the time. And she absolutely loves that. And that can be a great solution, but it does require a little bit of planning to get that to go. But anytime you're working with anything, I've often said one day I'll design a room where everything, including the floor and the ceiling, is between my waist and my shoulders. Because that would be perfect. If you drop something on the floor, you just grab it and away you go, right? But that's where you want to work. And in a kitchen in particular, where you're dealing with sharp knives, you're dealing with fire, you're dealing with heavy, strange items. I remember, I'll never forget the time my dad dropped a glass mayonnaise jar on his foot. There's lots of things that can go on. So if you can work in between your waist and your shoulders as much as possible, that's ideal. So another item with appliances, a common problem we'll see in a kitchen is that around whatever appliance it is, when you open that appliance up, you suddenly cannot access that part of the kitchen anymore. If you open up the stove, then you can't walk over there because the stove's in your way. Or if you open up the refrigerator, you have to walk all the way around the island, or maybe you just can't get to the sink anymore because the refrigerator door is open. So these side-by-side refrigerators are a good solution that way, where the door's open, but you still have, instead of having a 3-foot wide door, you've only got an 18-inch wide door. So you can open the door and still get past, or have better mobility around it. So appliances can make a big difference, and oftentimes you can upgrade your kitchen that way and make your life a lot easier. And it's a pretty simple fix. You don't even have to call me sometimes, right? Or you don't have to call GT. You can just go to the appliance showroom, find the thing that'll work for you, and they'll come out and take away the old one and put in the new one for you.
Okay. Originally, we had a little pop quiz for you, but we're going to kind of modify that a little bit because of time. So, Andy, can you, in just a minute or so, talk to us about this kitchen and then the changes?
Sure. Yeah, so this is you get the Cliff Notes version, the cheat here. So this is a kitchen that, it's a nice big kitchen, as you can see, but the big problem with it is that they took every possible working component of that kitchen and they put it within about a 10-foot square area. So you've got your sink, and across from the sink, directly across, you've got the cooktop. And then shoved in the corner, you may not be able to see, but you got the microwave above and the stove is below it. And right next to that is the refrigerator. So they took a 14 by 20 foot kitchen and turned it into a 5 foot by 8 foot kitchen by design, And I don't think that was their intention, but that's how it ended up working out. And so this is a project that we did, but one of their big complaints was that it's even as large as the kitchen is, it's a one-person kitchen, and there's no room for anybody else in there to be of any use. So what we did was we turned it around, and this is where design will help you out. So we have now there's space between the refrigerator and the sink. We left the cooktop is in essentially the same place, but you can see there's another sink on the other side. So there's 2 workstations now on either side of the island, and then we moved the ovens a little bit out of the way so that you can get around and get at stuff. So this is just an example of how designing your kitchen ahead of time, or if your kitchen's run to the end of its life and you have to redesign it, you can really think these things through and make your life a lot easier that way. And again, like I was saying, it doesn't have to be a huge kitchen to work effectively that way. It's just, in this case, it happened to be.
A couple of things that I noticed when I looked at this. He also put in an outlet right there, which is nice, and it's tall, so you don't have to bend over to plug anything in. And he changed the pulls here on the cabinets. Instead of having knobs, it's something where you can kind of just slide your hand behind and then pull it out. We're gonna wrap things up. We've taken a little bit too much of your time already, so we're gonna fly through this last couple of slides here. So I imagine that you guys are all sitting there thinking, well, there's some great ideas, but how are we gonna start to pay for it? So we have a couple of resources. We have here on the this sheet that is on your table. There are some financial resources, including Aging Services, the City of Iowa City, the Greater Iowa City Home Builders Association, the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County, Iowa Valley Habitat for Humanity. And then if you have any questions really about anything in the entire history of the world, you can call Jeff Kelbach. And then on the back of this document is a list of some resources, CAP certified people here in the Iowa City area, as well as some medical supply stores and some other resources that may help you out. So if you have any questions, we will be happy to stick around and talk to you a little bit. We also have Mark Culver, who said that he'd stick around for a little bit. Mark is going to help administer the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County, their repair program. So if you have any questions about whether you might qualify for that program, Mark would be the guy to talk to, and he'll be in the back before you leave today. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to the human Google, Jeff Kelbach.
Wow, no pressure whatsoever. So I'll do my best to answer questions for you, but chances are I can't answer every single thing out there that Scott says I can. Scott, if we weren't short on time, I'd want to get into a long conversation about your nightmares. I assume they're your nightmares with Fran McCaffrey screaming at you, but we don't have time for that. I did want to thank Collins Community Credit Union again for providing lunch, and Mary Jo, she's a real estate loan officer from Collins Community Credit Union, is going to come up and just say a few words. I know she has something interesting she wants to talk about, because there aren't a lot of places that do this. So I'll turn it over to you here.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for letting us sponsor this today. And Collins Community Credit Union offers reverse mortgages. So we are the only local lender that does that. And we're basically, I'm your specialist when you're looking at just getting information about it. I think the biggest thing is the educational piece and knowing what it is and how it works. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And my biggest thing is just to let people know exactly what it is. It's not for everybody, but if you're educated about it and know how it works, then that's the number one thing. And you'll know if it's a good fit for you or not. But if you want any information about it, my information's back there on the desk as well, and I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Stay up here for just a second. And do you mind passing that basket over? We gotta pick our winner. You know, that's kind of why. A big thing here is Collins Community Credit Union is donating a $25 gift card to whoever she draws here.
Lucky person.
There's a name. Joan Folkman. Joan, we'll come up and talk to you here in a second. Stick around, all right? Thank you. Just real quickly, as Scott talked about, next month, September 11th, we have another forum. That one's called Safety First Leads to Longevity at Home. I have to write these down because they're just not like one or two words, and I can't handle more than 2 words. I'm in charge of that one, so it'll be great. It's going to be the best one ever. We have some really great information. A lot of it is going to be about falls prevention, which will also lead into a big event that we have in September 20th, the Falls Prevention Awareness Health and Resource Fair. It's going to be at the Kirkwood Regional Center out at the Oakdale campus, Oakdale Boulevard. We had this last year. Wonderful, wonderful event. We had about 400 people show up to that event. This year, we're hoping to have more than that. We have over 45 organizations represented in our vendor fair, resource fair. We have a lot of health offerings as well. There'll be flu shots available. Public health will be doing hepatitis C screens. There is fitness assessments, all sorts of stuff. And then most importantly, trying to get a lot of awareness out there about falls prevention. It is, I don't want to spoil all the stuff for next month or anything, but it is the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries amongst older adults. And I know these guys did an awesome job today talking about things that you can do in your home to help prevent some of those falls. And we'll expand on that a little bit next month as well. Some additional things that you can do in your home, but also things that you can do for yourself to kind of help strengthen and prevent falls. So we will hopefully see everybody next month. Thanks again to City Channel 4 for recording this so everybody can watch this and see all the screw-ups I made. And thanks again to Collins Community Credit Union for being a sponsor. Thank you.